Yeah, okay. So this is a little bit of an intro into archetypes and just a little bit around how those archetypes interface with the Dharma, as far as I see it. And just to say that these are my reflections. They're obviously not exhaustive. They're not going to be a complete summary of all possible angles on what archetypes are and what the possible connections with the Dharma are. But this is by way of my own reflections, things that I've been thinking about and seen that have animated me, actually, that have inspired me uh, and that I found useful. So I'm going to share that now, next few minutes. Um, So yeah, we're looking at four archetypes, and worth just trying to define terms a little bit. What is an archetype? Um, and actually, if I'd be interested to hear what your definitions of that are. So if or your thoughts on that. So maybe not out loud, but maybe in the chat box, if you've got any thoughts around what an archetype is, I'd be interested to hear from your perspective. Yeah, just in the chat, any thoughts around that? And you can be having a bit of a thought around that as I continue speaking. Yeah, this material comes largely from Jung. So Moore and Gillette developed this material out of a basic understanding of Jung's work on archetypes. So Jung did a lot of work on dreams, on trying to understand the basic patternings of our minds that sort of seem to show up with images and symbols. And actually, I've got a definition that I will share with you late in a minute, but I'll just give you a bit longer just to have a bit of a thought for yourselves around this. So I'd say one thing around archetypes is that they're universal. So it's really important. Often when people start thinking about archetypes, they want to try and say, well, this symbol means this. Okay, so for an example of this would be fire. Okay, so fire you could see as it's a real thing, but it can also be an archetypal symbol. And we could say, well, it's a symbol of heat, of life, and but sometimes we want to sort of define it in a way that sort of limits it. And one thing that's really, really important with archetypes is that we're trying to open up to the realm of undefined meaning. So they're symbols, I would say, that have got open-ended meanings. They're open to interpretation, and another thing that's really important around archetypes is the fact that they're universal. So I mentioned this, they're universal. So what you seem to find in all sorts of different cultures across the world are recurring images and symbols that seem to come up again and again in different cultures. So we're looking at the archetype of the king. So of course we have kings in all sorts of different cultures. We have kings in all sorts of different time frames, social, economic, cultural backgrounds, different empires with different kings, and so that's if you like on the human level. But we could also see like a king as an archetype. So an archetype in the sense of it's a principle. It's an aspect of um, an aspect of who we are actually. And if we can connect with that, it will inform an important it will animate an important part of ourselves, you know. So with archetypes, it's like because they're universal, if you key into them, they will resonate with you. Yeah. So universality. So I encourage you in this workshop to just to try and explore meanings, even if you've explored this symbolism before, or these archetypes. Try and see what occurs to you now. You know, this time, in this moment, what's important about this for you right now? What's alive? And hopefully that way we can sort of, in a way, key into the energy or the transformative potential of those archetypes as we go along. I would say archetypes are often how to put this, they're often expressed in images, or we see an archetype in an image, or an image or a symbol, and those images and symbols are perhaps more accessible than ideas sometimes. So when we bring to mind an image, say of the king, it's like if we see it, it might resonate in a stronger way than if you just read about the archetype of the king. So it might be for you that if you see a particular image, you might begin to resonate with that in a particular way that then brings you more alive. So coming back to these four archetypes. So we've got king, warrior, magician, lover, and these are four. Oh, let me just read these. So archetypes are patterns of behavior and characteristics that resonate with our psyches. Yes, yeah, very much so. They're patterns of behavior. So what we actually do, that and characteristics, almost like qualities that we resonate with. So the king holds qualities, and when we can resonate with those qualities, we begin to embody them more. And then another one from Ben: existing outside, independent of prevailing social structures. Yeah, really interesting. So this is about the fact that they're universal, that they're something that not limited by a particular social structure. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. You find the warrior archetype across all different social structures, for example, in all different societies. So very much keying into these areas that I've been talking about. The king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. And when you get a sense of all four of these archetypes, what you have a sense of is an entirety. It's almost like they touch different parts of our experience. There is the lover within us. There is the warrior that's within us. There is the king that's within us, and there is the magician that is within us. And somehow all four of these are they've almost got different qualities. They've got different feelings to them that we can begin to touch on and resonate with. Moore and Gillette say that that there's what we call mature and immature forms of each of these archetypes. So they talk about it very much in psychological terms. So in the case of the king, they say that there are two different kinds of immature versions of the king. And when we say immature, we're not being pejorative. We're just saying that there's a sort of a psychological development that allows for the full flourishing of the king, if you like. So the immature versions, they say, are on the one hand the tyrant, and on the other hand the weakling. And it's, in a way, it's quite strong language, but the tyrant being the ruler who is well, a tyrant who is acting out of the power mode, who is maybe not based in a strong sense of ethics and moral values, but is causing suffering to others and those around him or her. And then the weakling, so somebody who's not able to actually initiate anything, to achieve anything, to get anything done. A sense of agency is missing for this person, so they're not able to activate or create, if you like. So we can see maybe different elements of these within ourselves, and talking about the mature archetype of the king is somebody that sort of transcended those two polarities. So Gilletta more talk about polarities, and how if we can notice when we're in either of those two immature forms, that there's an opportunity to recognize that and to move beyond that into sort of more of a mature form with practice and with time. So just a couple of words on the king archetype within Buddhism. So I'm going to say a couple of words on that and then open things up. So very briefly, because we've not got a huge amount of time, it's worth saying that, well, the Buddha came from a kingly caste. The Buddha his family origins were regal, actually. They're sort of like a tribal kingly caste that the Buddha was part of. So he had that sense of being in the realm of power and influence from the earliest possible age, and yeah, that was largely because of his father being a Raja, a king. So there was that connection from an early stage in his life. We can see the Buddha's quest and then his enlightenment in terms of kingly qualities, if you like. So the Buddha is often referred to as the Jinna, or the conqueror. And, well, the conqueror might evoke qualities of the warrior, but also I would say the king. So when we see the story of the Buddha at the point of enlightenment, so he is being attacked, isn't he, by Mara's army at that point. Mara's army being this embodiment, this story that evokes all of the forces of evil, negativity, destruction that are meeting the Buddha at the point of his enlightenment. And of course, the story says that his love and his integrity meets all of this suffering, all of this destructive forces, and transforms it into beautiful flowers. So there's this conquering aspect to this story in the Buddha's life, conquering Mara's army. The Buddha's speech was known as the lion's roar, and I like this. So there's something about the lion's roar. So of course, the lion is the king of the jungle, the king of the animal kingdom, and the lion's roar evokes a sense that when the lion is in his power, all the other animals will listen. They will turn and they will listen. And this, to me, evokes the quality of the deepest level of integrity and power that the Buddha was manifesting. And so this sense of kingliness comes through for me with that epithet of the lion's roar. Cosmologically, you have the four kings, or not cosmologically, like mythically, you have the four kings in Buddhist mythology. They are more like protectors of the Dharma. So they hold worldly power, but they allow for the qualities of the Buddha to manifest. I was thinking a bit about protector spirits around this. So I remember when the Cambridge Buddhist Centre was, they wanted to buy a building and make it into a Buddhist centre, and there was a person on the council who, he wasn't a Buddhist, but he was very sympathetic to Buddhist values. And when he saw that they wanted to make this building into a Buddhist centre, he had a very favourable response to it, and he said, yes, let's give them the planning permission for that. So the protector gods are, if you like, the forces in the world that are sort of sympathetic to the protector kings, sorry, are the forces that are sympathetic to Buddhist practice and will allow for that practice to unfold. And you see that in the Buddha's story as well. You see rich, wealthy merchants providing the land for people to practice, to set up retreat centers. So we have this sense of protector kings supporting the Sangha. I think there's absolutely loads of connections you could make with the king archetype and Buddhist practice, and with Buddhist stories and suttas, and we can explore those later on. But wanted to just pause there for a moment and see if there was any responses to anything that I've said so far, and then we'll have a short tea break, and then we'll do something a bit more interactive. I'll just pause there for a moment. More around how I see both. I suppose it's what this is. Actually, let me start the recording again so that this gets recorded for others. So yeah, I'm going to say a little bit more about how I see the king archetype in relationship to the Dharma, but also trying to make it a little bit personal. And I think that's where the richness lies. And I think that's what I'm going to encourage us to do in a few minutes, to do this for ourselves. But I'll just share a few more thoughts around the king archetype with you in relation to the Dharma. So as I say, I see the Buddha as the lawgiver par excellence, if you like. So when we think of a king, he is somebody who gives laws, and for me, this is all about ordering. It's a really big part of what the king does, and this is very much, in my mind, associated with this sense of integration. So it's a term that most of us have probably heard, endlessly. But when we think of the king, and order, for me, this sense of integration really comes in, and this for me is all about how we can bring ourselves fully to bear with whatever it is that we're doing, that we're a whole person, wholly attending to whatever it is that we're doing. So Sangha, the founder of this movement, said that often we're a bit like a bundle of selves that kind of are kind of wanting different things at different times. And for example, when you say, all right, tomorrow I'm going to get out of bed and meditate tomorrow, and it comes the next morning and you're a different person at that time and you don't do it, so integration is about being able to kind of be really, it's this quality of being able to follow through on your commitments. Essentially, it's to be able, it's a quality of being able to live out your life, and to meet the obstacles with integrity, and to be able to work with them, and to move forwards as a whole person, rather than being having a sense of scatteredness. So for me, this is all about, this sense of integration is all about ordering. It's about the ordering of our psyches, if you like. And for me, the Buddha is a person who's done this to the nth degree. So for me, the Buddha knows himself inside out. When I read stories of the Buddha, I have the sense of a person, of a being who just has so much presence and ability to kind of meet whatever is in front of him, that he has a huge impact. There's a really lovely story of the Buddha's cousin, who is said to have been very jealous of the Buddha. It was called Devadatta, and apparently he sent a raging bull to attack the Buddha. And apparently what happened was the Buddha met this raging bull face on, and just through the power of his presence, the raging bull stopped in its tracks and became placid, and the whole energy was completely transformed through that. So, you can read these stories literally, you can read them allegorically. It's not important if you believe the story to be literally true or not. I think what it points to is the power of presence. And I've experienced this with people. I've experienced this with, for example, very powerful Dharma teachers. When they communicate effectively, I've been really moved at times when I've heard a really good, powerful Dharma talk. When I've heard somebody communicate authentically from their values in a way that is trying to, in a way, evoke their deepest values and to have an effect on others. I found that very, very powerful at times, whether that's a TED talk or a Dharma speaker. Like there are points where I've experienced that, and I think some people can manifest that more fully. So I think it's something that we can grow into as a quality. The king, he's an executive. He makes decisions. We're not talking about a Wall Street executive, but a king is somebody who can make decisions. He can assess the whole situation and decide what the best course of action is to take. So I see this in terms of the Buddha going out on a quest. So the Buddha was at a certain point decided, right, well, this isn't good enough. I'm going to have to step out of my comfort zone. I'm going to have to change my life and find a different way that meets my deepest existential questioning. So he went out on a quest. He made a decision to do that with integrity. So he weighed up the situation. Well, this is my life. Do I want it just to continue as it is now, or do I need to do something to change things in a different, and to live something out, to try and live something out more fully? But he made that decision. And we've all had that experience, haven't we, where we've had to make a difficult decision, and there's that sort of cusp moment where you think, am I going to do this, or am I just going to have a nice comfortable life, or am I going to do something that's actually quite challenging and that will kind of ask a lot of me? So this quality of being able to follow through on decisions, I would say. And perhaps lastly, in this area of ordering, I'd say that the king, he protects the realm. So obviously in traditional terms, a king has a kingdom has subjects, and traditionally he would have been responsible for protecting that realm. When I think of this in terms of my own sense of what protecting the realm means for me, what comes up for me is this Buddhist term, guarding the gates of the senses. So this term, guarding the gates of the senses, is about recognizing that sometimes life just presents us with so much challenge and so many, and it can have such an effect that we lose a sense of being able to be creative, positive, that there's value in limiting what it is that we're paying our attention to. Like right now, we've made the call to come here on this workshop. In a sense, we're guarding the gates of the senses by doing this. We've made this decision rather than do something else that, you know, might not have been so, you know, like my ones are like online chess. I mean, there's nothing wrong with online chess, you know, time to time, but you know, if I had the chance to do this rather than that, you know, I think this has probably got a bit more substance to it. You know, I've decided to do this. So in a way, guarding the gates of the senses is about kind of recognizing that there are choices to be made about so, and in a way, the subjects represent the different parts of ourselves. We look after the different parts of ourselves. We look after the part that needs nourishing, you know, the part that needs beauty, the part that needs connection, you know, and we nourish that. We give that attention. We protect it, if you like. You know, we see this in the Buddha's life as well. So the Buddha protected the Sangha. He created the Sangha, and he tried to make sure that people could practice it by you know, encouraging people to live communally, to practice with each other, to study together, to practice meditation together, to live a Dharma life, you know, to protect that what's of most importance, really. So this quality of protecting the realm, a king does that. Okay, so a few things there about ordering and how the king does that in relationship to the Dharma. I'm going to go into another brief meditation here. So I want you to just bring yourself back into meditation. We're going to just do what I'm calling a Mandala practice. So I want you just to see if you can, again, just connect with your body, come back to your body. There's a bit of a pause here, so just feel your feet on the floor. I want you just to bring to mind all the significant aspects of your life, your work. Let's start with your work. And just let the sense of that wash over you. Your relationships, maybe intimate relationships, your friendships. Just bring them to mind. Where you live, just have a sense of that. the things you enjoy doing. This is your life. I'm just going to ask you the question, what is it that's the most important thing that about all of these things? What's the thing that drives you, the thing that really motivates you to have the life that you've got? Perhaps it's a quality, perhaps it's a way that you want to be in the world. What is it that's really important to you? That's most important to you in your life? If nothing comes, that's fine. Just notice. If anything does come, all these different aspects of your life, your friends, your family, your job. What is it that you care about in life? What's important to you? Yeah, so be curious to hear any responses around that. And the reason I did that little exercise was just to, in a way, try and get a sense for you to try and get a sense for yourself, what it is that is, in a sense, the kind of the king within your own life. You know, what, using this word metaphorically, what is the thing that really drives you, that kind of provides meaning or order in your life? What is it that really animates you? And then I suppose another question is how much are you living that out? How much is that really being lived out in your life? So, I mean, they're big questions, but if there are any short responses to this, I'd be interested to hear. The king does this. And he does it for our benefit. So he does it to create a sense of calm and peace in the realm. And order here is not about being rigid, it's about creating freedom. And actually, I think this is really important. When we think of integration and order, what comes to me are different images. So we have the mandalas, which represent an integration. So it's said from a psychotherapeutic point of view that when we're feeling particularly integrated and together, often we can have dreams that are in the form of beautiful shapes like a mandala. And again, these crop up in all sorts of different cultures. But what strikes me about these different beautiful mandalas, I'll just bring up some pictures of some mandalas here. What strikes me about mandalas is that they're not rigid forms, so they represent order, but they're very, very beautiful often, and they crop up in all sorts of different cultures, as I say. So I just thought I'd just share with you a few few mandalas that for me this is about ordering. Actually, this is about structure, but they're beautiful, I think. So just a few to share there. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to say on ordering and structure. Then the other main quality of the king I wanted to mention is around blessing and fertility. So yeah, blessing and fertility. These are qualities of the king traditionally. Talking about fertility, that's an interesting area, isn't it? So in traditional societies, apparently, this is what I've read, and you may have read other things, but I've read that apparently it was seen that if the king had lots of children, if he was potent in that way, then the kingdom would be it was a representation of the prosperity of the kingdom. It was almost like a harbinger for the crops being successful. If the king had lots of children, the crops would grow. But what's this a metaphor for? So I see this very much in terms of so when you have a sense of fertility, it's about potential, it's about creativity, it's about abundance, actually. So yeah, and so it's said that the king both creates, so in a way creation and fertility is linked here. So the king creates and he inspires creativity in others. Okay, so I would say the Buddha had a very fertile mind. Like, so we talk in Triratna about creativity versus reactivity. So what this is about when we are really creative, when we're and I don't just mean painting, I don't just mean drawing, I don't mean sort of playing music, but I mean creative in the way we live our life. I mean creativity in the way we communicate with other people. When we're really creative, we're not acting out of habit. And when we're not acting out of habit, there's a sense of freedom. So when we get caught in our habits, we get more reactive, we respond in a particular way to the way that person said that thing to me. We get into reactive states. The opposite of that is creativity. And the Buddha had a supremely creative mind. When you look at the way the Buddha lived his life, he didn't seem to be, he was described as the trackless one who was free of any sort of karmic trail of negativity. Sometimes you can think of, I'm like this myself, like I leave the cupboard doors open and there's a mess and I haven't followed up and tidied up the stuff in my room and I leave a trail of stuff everywhere. Well, what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is recognizing that everything that we're responsible for, we have a karmic we can have an influence on the world around us and the way we live our lives, and we can do that in a skillful way that has a positive impact on ourselves and on other people. When we do that well, we're living creatively, we're living freely, and we're living, in a sense, from a fertile place, you could say. You know, so this quality of fertility is really key here. I think one of the most important parts of this for me is around blessing. So the king is said to be somebody who blesses, and you see this in traditional societies. Like there's stories of the pharaohs where you would get the Egyptian pharaoh would apparently he would stand up on a platform, and he would reach down to the people below, and he might have some gold bracelets on, and he would give one of those gold bracelets to one of the subjects, and there would be a sense of blessing that went along with that. And traditionally, the language of the king, so the king was an intermediary between the gods and everyday man, and so he was almost like a channel. He was somebody who could give a blessing through channeling something profound and being able to pass that on to other people. Yeah, so almost like the king had a sort of a divine status. In the life of the Buddha, we see people being touched very, very deeply by his presence. So you would have this stock phrase in the Pali Canon, it is as though things have been revealed that were hidden. A light has been switched on in a darkened room. And what this refers to is people being very much blessed or touched or inspired by some other way of being that was mysterious, profound, impossible to fathom, that kind of touched people in a way that felt like a blessing. So you see that in the Buddhist stories again and again. And in terms of us, so what does this mean for us? You know, I think this is about recognizing that we are touched by other people, and that we can help other people as well. I think it sort of works in that way. So I think part of this is gratitude. So I mean, personally speaking, I've been so grateful for what I've received from so many people. Like, you know, I'm thinking here in terms of my Dharma life, people who have been very influential in that way, but also teachers at school, you know, people that, and then when you start reflecting on it, you think, gosh, I've received so much from so many people. And there's a sense of receiving, almost like blessings from others. You could use that sort of language. And then the other side of it is, I think the king really sort of passes that on to other people. So I see this in terms of mentoring, or just being of service to others in some way. So I'm a coach, and I help people to work out what to do with their lives. And that feels like a privilege, but it's also something that I feel like it helps both me, and it helps that other person as well. A bit like Gustav was saying with teaching, you know, there's something there where you're sort of passing something on, and that seems really powerful. This element of mentoring, helping others, such an important way to access that quality of the king, I would say. Finally, the king leaves a legacy. So the king leaves a legacy. The Buddha left a huge legacy, as we all know. We all receive the teachings that come down to us through the ages. He's had a huge impact on humanity for the last 2,500 years. The king is said to leave a legacy. So, like an effective king will have made a difference through the way he's lived his life, and left things in a better state than he found them, essentially. And so how do we do this for ourselves? It feels like quite a big statement, doesn't it, to leave a legacy. Maybe won't talk about myself, but I can think of friends who have kind of set up some really big projects that will continue well after they've left, being involved with them, and how powerful that is, to have been able to have such an influence and effect. And I think we do that to our own level, to our own degree, but I think it's maybe something useful to reflect upon. So we have, the king as somebody who blesses and who brings about fertility and who leaves a legacy.